Torah guardian, speaking the absolute truth. Torah nation.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. I should say Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Listen, the Yahuwah of the heavens is visiting the erects. He has come forth with signs of judgment. Listen, we're listening to none other than Hezekiah. You know I love this song is entitled Freedom's Wins. 2.5, I love this I don't own the rights to this music. His words are prophetic. His music is prophetic. Yahweh, I give you praise for your Torah and your Besorah of truth. I give you praise for your Ruach HaKodesh, the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach, your word in me, your Torah of truth in me. Yahuwah, I thank you for your Ruach HaKodesh, your water and your blood. I thank you, Yahuwah. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, you called me to cry loud and to spare not, to lift up my voice like a trump. To cry loud, to spare not. Yahuwah, you called me to sound the alarm. You said unto me, listen, I need you to tell my people that they need to receive the witness, the water, the blood, the Ruach HaKodesh. They need to be baptized. They need to be born again. Yahuwah, I pray right now in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach in obedience to you to take the reins of my lips and the reins of my tongue and reign and allow me by the Ruach HaKodesh in my belly to flow rivers. Yahuwah, that you would speak through me. Yahuwah, I do this for the people. I do this for the kingdom. I do this for Yahushua HaMashiach. I do this for you. I do this for my nation. I do this for the nation. I do this for those that are the people. Those that you have chosen from other nations. I do it, Yahuwah, for them. Yahuwah, I give you praise. Yahuwah, let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Yahuwah, cause me not to allow anyone to stumble. Cause me not to allow anyone to be turned out of the way, to come up lame. Yahuwah, this is a work. And this is the work that you've called me to work. Yahuwah, I'm doing it in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. And I pray that you will set your approval on it. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. We glory in tribulation. The Yahuwah of the Hebrews is visiting the earth. The Yahuwah of the slaves is visiting the earth. The Yahuwah of the Israel is visiting the earth. Listen. You better get a clue, bro. You better get a bruised clue. Nations of the nations, those of you who are of the other nations, you better get a clue. You better get a clue. Listen, I'm praying that the word of Yahuwah would make you alive. I'm praying that the word that you hear will cause you to develop emunah. If you haven't received the witness, that you would be driven to receive the witness, the Ruach HaKodesh and the water. The Ruach HaKodesh, the water and the blood. I'm praying and believing, interceding for you that you would be established in this truth. Because there's no hope apart from this. There's no victory apart from this. You know, I'm trusting the Most High. You know, I told you before, I tell you, get them trust the Most High. You know, I'm just going to do this until, you know, I'm going to endure to the end. You know, really want to do it to the end. Right? I really have no intentions of doing anything else but endure to the end. So all I want to do is I want to have my Abba be pleased with me. I want my Abba to say, well done. Not because my name is Weldon. I was in high school. I was in high school, and it was a high school in the suburbs, and I think there was only like 10 or 15 black people in the whole school, right? And they used to make fun of my name, call me well done. Said you're well done, like it's you're cooked long. That only flowed for a little while, because then I had to tighten some people up. When you tighten one or two up, everybody got a clue then. Don't mess with them. But the understanding is that we're gonna do this until the end, right? We gonna endure to the end. We gonna fight this fight until the end. When I think about the prophets, and I think about how Yahuwah gave them a message, and that message didn't change. The first 2 chapters of Ezra, right? He tells Ezra what to do. And this was actually during the captivity. Because I think the 3rd chapter we go into how Ezra had been in Babylon, right? 30 years, right? And we know the captivity, that first captivity lasted 70 years, right? So he prophesied to the nation, right? And they didn't want to receive it. Hence, they ended up in captivity to Babylon, right? He had the same message. Message didn't change, right? You need to repent. And as you go into 2nd Ezra, we're going to go into 2nd Ezra, that 3rd chapter, we're going to see Ezra's, his heart is troubled, right? But Yahuwah didn't change the message. He already declared what he was going to do. Ezra went to the nation, and they didn't want to receive him. Yaakov and Yehuda, they wanted to continue in their covenant breaking. So he went to the Gentiles, to the heathens, to the other nations, right? He didn't do it then. But he knew that the wickedness of the nation would go up until the time when Yahushua HaMashiach would appear. And after his witness, which they received Yeshua from, if they believed in Emunah, right? The message was still the same. Tell my people they need to repent. Tell my people they need to turn from their sins. Tell my people they need to obey my laws, statutes, and commandments. Tell my people that they need to receive this name, Yahushua Mashiach. There's nothing new under the sun. That which I declare unto you, I declare to you because Yahuwah has been saying it from the ancient of days. You have to obey my covenants. You got to walk in my statutes. You have to take heed, give heed to my word. So we going in. Ezra, the 3rd chapter, right? So here we have Ezra in this 3rd chapter, right? Because he was able to give a word to the nation. In the 1st and 2nd chapter, he revealed who the people really were, right? People were those who were robbed and spoiled, who later on came to themselves, right? They became those dry bones that could live again, right? The prophet Ezekiel prophesied over the bones, and they came together. muscle was reshaped on the bones, and the skin was on the bones, but they stood up, but they were still slain. They were still dead. Right? We are a people, right? We've understood that we are the people. We have stood up, yet we're still dead until we receive his Ruach HaKodesh. And that made the difference. Ezra prophesied as he was instructed to. Right? Let's go in. Ezra, the 3rd chapter. It says, in the 30th year after the ruin of the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem had been destroyed, ruined. Right, 30 years later. Right, Yahuwah is giving the land a Shabbat from the wickedness of the nation. Right? I was in Babylon, and I laid trouble upon my bed. I was in Babylon. I was on my bed, and I was troubled. Right? And my thoughts came up over my heart. Right? My heart was heavy. Right? We the people. And look where we are. We are the people. And look where we are. Captive. In Babylon. Hear the word of Yahuwah. Hear the word of Yahuwah. Hear the word of Yahuwah. Yahuwah said that you are yet in Babylon. And the prophet is giving you a word. He's waking you up. He's trying to get you to understand the need to be quickened. He is trying to bring the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach to you yet in Babylon. Heed the word of the prophet. Heed the word of the prophet. Heed the word of the man of the Yahuwah. Laying troubled on his bed. Thoughts came over his heart. He considered how the city and the people have been taken captive. The city ruined. And the people taken into captivity because of their sin. 30 years in Babylon. He says, for I saw the desolation of Sion. I saw the desolation of the nation. The land, the territory. I saw the desolation of the people. Robbed and spoiled. Because they was robbed and spoiled there. They were robbed and they were spoiled. He says, and the wealth of them that dwelt in Babylon. See, Yahshua and Yehuda, you need to understand that, you see the wealth in these nations. And instead of seeking Yahuwah's righteousness instead of seeking the witness of Yahuwah through faith in Yahushua HaMashiach, and look to the Yeshua that promises you these things, you look and behold what Babylon has, and you crave it, you desire it, you want it, you clamor after it, and in the process, you are breaking the covenant of Yahuwah. You want mammon. You want to serve mammon. Now, Ezra is beholding this, and he's seeing how the nation that was once a flourishing, thriving, allure-filled, worshiping nation had slipped under leadership and had brought in adultery, and what that has caused them to become now entrapped, enslaved, in captivity, in bondage to Babylon. And you know, you in Babylon, right? And you see the disparity, right? Now you know you in Babylon because you're captive. Right? You were slaves. And only one way to gain anything in Babylon is to sell your soul. You have to give what's holy over to the dogs. You got to. You actually have to forsake what is holy to the dogs to take what the dogs have to offer. You. He said, the wealth of them that dwelt in Babylon. They's wealthy. Taking everything from Yashra. Babylon has come in and took everything. Kings, rulers, royalty of Israel, Jerusalem, taking it. All the gold, the silver, the wealth, the fineness, the clothes, the garments, became wealthy. Babylon. He sees this, right? He said, my spirit was so moved. He was grieved in his ruach, right? He says that I began to speak words full of fear to the Most High. Started talking to the Most High from a place of fear, right? He says, Adonai, who bears rule, because make no mistake about it, Babylon is taking us captive, but you're still in charge. I know this is about the captivity that comes as a result of the disobedience of the nation, because you had me prophesy to these people and you had me tell them what you said, and they did not receive me. I know. I know you bear rule. I know Babylon thinks that, it's because of them that we're where we are, but I know you know, and you bear rule. You speak a word, and this whole captivity will cease, because you're in charge, right? He says, thou speakest at the beginning when thou didst plant the earth, and that thyself alone and commandedst the people. See, everything exists because of you. Yahuwah and the Ruach, Yahuwah and the word Yahusha. These three that agree in the heavens brought everything together. It's in the beginning. He brought the earth from the waters. You created separations of land mass and water from water. Create everything in it. He said, listen, when thou didst plant the arets, and that thyself alone, and commandedst the people, and gave a body unto Adam. The bearest rule from the beginning. When you established the earth and commanded the people. He says, you gave a body unto Adam without soul, which was the workmanship of thine hands, and didst breathe into him the breath of life, and he was made a living being. He was made living before thee. We understand the process. He says, and thou leddest him into paradise, the prepared place, right? Which thy right hand had planted before ever the earth came forward. This place was established. Paradise. Right? Before ever the earth was established, there was paradise. Right? He says, before ever the earth came forward. Right? And unto him thou gavest commandments. No, unto him thou gavest commandment. Right? To love thy way, which he transgressed. Right? And immediately thou appointedst death unto him. He gave his commandment. He transgressed. Right? He says, thou gavest him a commandment to love thy way. To love thy truth. To love thy Torah. Torah is the way. Yahusha is the way. Yahusha is the Torah made flesh. To love Yahuwah's commandments. Right? He says, which he transgressed, and immediately, right, thou appointedst death unto him. It became necessary for him to die. Right? And in his generations, of whom came nations and tribes and peoples and kindreds out of number. The population of the entire world. Right? And everybody in that populace were recipients of the death sentence. Couldn't escape it. Right? The penalty of penalty of Adam's transgression was death that passed on to everyone. Right? He says, and whom came nations, tribes, peoples, kindreds out of number. And every people walked after their own will, right? And did wonderful things before thee, and despised thy commandments. These people had achievements. They done things, right? But they despised the Torah of you. They despise the commandments of you. You know, Enoch taught the people the way of you, right? He taught the people the way of you. But you know, after he left and after time, and then, of course, comes Hasatan, not Hasatan, but the angels that left their place and had relations with the daughters of men and exchanged technology. These people, they began to do wonderful things before you, right? But in all this they did, they despised the commandments, which means that they had knowledge of the commandments. You know, the angels, there were angels that were responsible for the Shabbats. They understand the Torah of the Shabbat. It was to be watched. It was to be guarded. Right? Listen. He says, and despise thy commandments. And again, in process of time, thou broughtest the flood upon those that dwelt in the world. Right? Because Yahuwah has no need for people who do not worship him, that do not obey him. They are like spittle. His creation. See, Yahuwah can do whatever he wants to do with his creation. Who can question Yahuwah in reference to why he thought that it was right to wipe out the earth with a deluge? Who can question you? It's again, in the process of time, thou broughtest a flood upon those that dwelt in the world and destroyed them. Yahuwah is righteous. Everything Yahuwah does is righteous. Every position he takes is from a position of rightness. There is nothing flawed about Yahuwah's decision or his decision making. He made you. He can raise you up just to kill you. He says, and it came to pass in every of them that as death was to Adam, so was the flood to these. Death was to Adam. Because it's appointed unto man wants to die. But death came to these as well. Adam passed on spiritual death. These people were already dead in sins. They was dead in sin, and they died a natural death. So did Adam, right? He says, listen. Nevertheless, one of them thou was left, namely Noah, with his household, of whom came a righteous man. Came a righteous man, right? From Noah. And it happened that when they that dwelt upon the earth began to multiply, had gotten them many children, and were a great people, they began again to be more ungodly than the first. He's recounting these events to a Yahuwah with a purpose in mind. Right? Because Yahuwah knows all these things. Right? Ezra is laying down a persuasive argument concerning what he has understood in reference to how Yahuwah has done what he did, what he's done, right? He says, and it happened that when they that dwelt upon the earth began to multiply, and had gotten many children, and were a great people, right? They began again to be more ungodly, right, than the first, who wiped everybody out but Noah and his family. Destroyed them all. He says, now when they lived so wickedly before thee, thou didst choose thee a man from among them, whose name was Abraham. Abraham refused to worship the Els of his fathers. Abraham pursued an understanding of, he pursued a knowledge of Yahuwah. He was educated in Yahuwah's truth by Shem, right, and by Noah. Abraham. You know, they lived long. It says here, right? He says, him thou lovest, and unto him only thou shewest thy will. Why? Because Abraham kept Yahuwah's commandments. He had already wrote down the name of Yaakov and Shamaim at the foundations of the earth. The angels have already declared that they were to guard Yahuwah's Shabbat. Right? Oh. Yahuwah has one man out of a multitude of men that was willing to stand for righteousness. Noah was a man that Yahuwah called stand for righteousness. Abraham and his seed. Right? He says, listen, him thou lovest, and unto him only thou showed thy will, and madest an everlasting covenant. Made a contract with this man forever. He made a contract with this man forever. He says, and madest an everlasting contract with him, promising him that he would never forsake his seed. He's making a case. A case is built on a promise made into a man whom you loved. One man that you separated from amongst all men. One nation under Shem. Right? He says, unto him thou gavest Yitzhak, and unto Yitzhak thou gavest Jacob and Esau. And as for Jacob, thou didst choose him to thee, right? And putteth by Esau. You chose Jacob. Now listen. Jubilees, the second chapter. Beginning at 17th verse. Right? It's the tail end of creation. Right? It's Genesis expounded. He says, listen, Genesis 1. And he had finished all his works on the sixth day. Again, this is Jubilees, but it's an expounding of Genesis, the first chapter, right? He said, and he finished, and again, Jubilees was given to Moshe to write and record. The angels gave Moshe. Yahuwah gave the angel, give Moshe Jubilees. Just for reference. Jubilees, the first chapter. And Moshe was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and Elohim taught him the early and the latter history of the division of all the days and of the Torah and of the testimonies. And he said, incline your heart to every word which I shall speak unto you on this mountain, and write them in a sefer, in order that the generations may see how I have not forgotten them for all the evil which they have wrought in transgressing the covenant which I established between you and me for their generations this day on Mount Sinai. Moshe recorded Jubilees, right? So that the nation of Israel will know all the wickedness that they did, how they violated the Torah of you, right? And thus it will come to pass when all these things come upon them that they will recognize that I am more righteous than they in all their judgments and all their actions, and they will recognize that I have been truly with them. Right? Right? So Esdras is making a case. Right? Building a case. Right? Now, when we look in Jubilees, the second chapter, Jacob is special to you. Right? Because we see here that he says that thou hast did choose Jacob and put by Esau. So Jacob became a great multitude. Right? Now listen. Jubilees, the second chapter, the 17th verse. And he finished all his works, Genesis, on the sixth day. All that is in the heavens and on the earth and in the sea and in the abyss. That's that deep water. You know, it's funny how, they make movies about the abyss. Deep water, right? And in the light and in the darkness and in everything, right? Creation, right? And he gave us a great sign, the Shabbat, that we should work 6 days, but guard the Shabbat on the seventh day from all work. And all the angels of the presence and all the angels of the sanctification, these two great classes, two groups, right? He has hidden us, he has bidden us to guard the Shabbat with him in the Shamayim and on the Eretz. So these two great classes of angels are to guard the Shabbat that he has instituted on the seventh day, right? Right? They were to enforce it. Right? Right? He says, and he said unto us, behold, I will separate unto myself a people from among all the people, and these shall guard the Shabbat. You're going to separate a people from amongst the people. He's guarded, and these shall guard the Shabbat, and I will sanctify them unto myself as my people, and will bless them as I have sanctified the Shabbat, and do sanctify unto myself, and even so will I bless them, and they shall be my people, and I will be their ruler. Right? He says, I have chosen the seed of Jacob. See. Let's renew this. Let's renew this. The nation collectively knew the history. They hid this from us. That's why they didn't canonize all of this. Revealing, he was telling. Because if you can get the people to connect and recognize who they are, right? Recognize what they did wrong, make the correction, and then people learn, right? They become a stronger people, a great nation, right? See, and we are the people of Yahuwah, are that people. We who have received the witness of Yahushua Mashiach. We the people. I do this on Shabbat, and it's We the People of the Book broadcast. Right? But the people, we the people, are those who have received the witness of Yahusha. Yeah. Those that are of Yasharal and Yehuda, and those that are of the other nation. The people. Grafted in. The people. He says, listen. See, he'll never forget the word that he's given. He gave this at the foundation of the earth. He knew that he was going to establish a cove. He says, listen. He says, and unto him I gave Yitzhak, and unto Yitzhak also I gave Jacob and Esau. And of Jacob thou didst choose him to thee, and put by Esau. And so Jacob became a great multitude, right? And it came to pass that when thou leddest his seed out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage, right? Right? Thou broughtest him up to Mount Sinai. Gave him a Torah, a commandment. Actually reminded him of a Torah, the commandment. Right? He said, listen, listen. And bowing the heavens, thou didst set fast the earth, movest the whole world, and made the depths to tremble and trouble, and troubleth the men of that age. As when you came down on the top of the mountain, he shook the whole world. Yeah. Right. He says, bowing the heavens, thou didst set fast the earth, moveth the whole world, and madest the depths to tremble, because Yahuwah put his feet on the earth. Yahuwah manifested his presence on the mountain. And troubleth the men of the age. You shook things up. Yahuwah just shook things up. Right? He says, and thy glory went through 4 gates of fire, and of earthquake, and of wind, and of cold, that thou mightest give the Torah unto the seed of Jacob. Here, get a picture of this. Yahuwah's presence, right, manifested in the eretz, right, fire, earthquake, right, winds, right, cold, right, that thou mightest give the Torah, right, unto the seed of Jacob. You, right? And diligent unto the generation of Israel. If my people which are called by my name, listen diligently. It shall come to pass if you hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahuwah thy Elohim, and observe to do all that he commands thee this day. Well, what did they do? Right? And yet tookest thou not away from them a wicked heart. Gave them the Torah. Kept their heart just the way it was. That thy law might bring forth fruit in them. Like the Torah reveal their sin, call to remembrance the wickedness, the violation of what they have done in Torah. That in knowing there's a violation of Torah, they would recognize that they would need a sacrifice from a high priest. They would need to have that sin cleansed or covered. Right? They were wicked. The heart was wicked. Right? He says that thy law might bring forth fruit. Why? Because the Torah, right, reveals sin. Sin is a transgression of Torah. A wicked heart sins. A wicked heart must recognize what he done is wicked. The only way a wicked heart is going to know what he's done is wicked is measuring it up against the Torah of Yahuwah. The Torah of Yahuwah was important. It was necessary. It was a taskmaster. For the first Adam, bearing a wicked heart, transgressed and was overcome, and so be all they that are born from him. See? Adam yielded. Right? He was a righteous seed. He didn't know sin. Right? But he yielded because he disobeyed. He knew Yahuwah said not to do a thing. And he did a thing. I became wicked at that point. You hate Yahuwah when you trespass his Torah and his commandments. He says, for the first Adam bearing a wicked heart transgressed. He bearing a wicked heart transgressed. What he did was bearing. Havas. She was already deceived. The first Adam bearing a wicked heart transgressed. He did. He did. Because Eve was wicked first. He bore bearing. Let's do this. Let's do this. Bearing, a person's way of standing or moving. He postured, compartmented, stand, departed. The definition of the word bearing is a person's way of standing or moving. A revelation, a revelancy, significance. The level to which something's bad can be tolerated. He tolerated Eve's violation. He bearing it. For thus bearing a wicked heart transgressed, and was overcome, and so be all they that are born of him. Right? Now, Esdras making a case. He's making a case, right? Thus infirmity was made permanent. The wicked sinful heart was made permanent. Right? And the Torah also in the heart of the people was the malignity of the root, right? So that the good departed away and the evil still abode. The wicked heart causes separation of the righteous, good heart. Right? Sin was passed on to all men, this infirmity of the flesh. Right? This heart thing. Right? The law also in the heart of the people with a malignity, right? Well, you know, malignity. Let's look at that word, malignity. Right? So, a malignity. Come on, stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. Is a malignity is in an evil in nature, or malevolent, right? Right? Synonyms: harm, evil, bad, hostile, immiscible, destructive, right? So, the destruction of the root, so that the good departed away. Listen, Adam gave way to Eve's transgression. Right? And he made it possible for an evil root, right? Because sin separated from you. When they transgressed, the Ruach of Yahuwah left. Yahuwah had breathed in them, and they had Yahuwah's Ruach. But when she entertained sin, Hasatan left. The Ruach HaKodesh left. When she committed to taking that apple, or taking that fruit, and eating that fruit, she gave way to evil, right? And then when she took to Adam bore a wicked heart transgression and was overcome. He's overcome. He was willing to take that which was given to him that violated Yahuwah's Torah, and bear that. And as a result, right, a wicked heart overcome him, right? And because of that, it became everyone. Now, this infirmity, this sin that was passed on to all men was made permanent, right? Sin nature, right? And the Torah also in the heart of the people with the evil root, so that the good departed and the evil still abode. That's what happened to Shlomo. Shlomo, listen, you were given to me your Ruach HaKodesh of wisdom. Good, so your heart is right. You want to do this for the people. 35 years later, you forget who gave it to you. You listening to that self-talk all the time. You know, Yahuwah said, these people say you are the greatest of all times. So you know what? Let me give myself to no madness and folly. That wicked root So that the good, the Ruach HaKodesh of truth, the Ruach HaKodesh of wisdom and knowledge departed Shlomo. The Ruach HaKodesh departed Adam and Avah. The Ruach HaKodesh departed Dawid. Dawid recognized what he did wrong. He repented. He repented bitterly. He repented. And Yahuwah said, this man is after my own heart. Repented. Yahuwah gave him the Ruach HaKodesh. He received the Ruach HaKodesh. Again, came back to him. It departed, but it came back. He said, so the times, Kadar, be quiet and go lay down. So the time passed away, and the years were brought to an end, right? Then didst thou raise up a servant called Dawid, right? Right? Whom thou commandest to build a city unto thy name, and to offer incense and oblation unto thee therein. Dawid. Build a city for Yahuwah, right? And to offer oblations, right? And incense therein. Right? And when he was done many years, then they that inhabited the city forsook him. Kadar! Be quiet and go lay down! Forsook him. Left Yahuwah. Shlomo entertained folly and madness, taking unto himself foreign wives, serving their elves, bringing this to the nation, right? He says, when this was done many years, then they that inhabited the city forsook thee, right? He's bringing it in. And in all things did even as Adam. Right? And all his generations had done, for they also had a wicked heart. See, that's why you said, I'm going to give you my name. I'm going to give you your salvation. Because the only way to deal with this wicked heart is if I remove it from you. And the only way it's possible is through the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Ruach HaKodesh, the water and the blood. It's the only way I can take out that wicked heart. See, Yahuwah said in Ezekiel, right? He said in Ezekiel, he said in Ezekiel 36, he says, Ezekiel 36, he says, I will take you from amongst the heathen and gather you out of all the countries and bring you to your own land. Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be cleansed from all your filthiness and from your idols and from your uncleanness. And a new heart also. A new heart, right? Will I give you, and a new ruach will I put in you, within you. And I will take away the stony heart, the wicked heart, right? And out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. Right? And I will put my Ruach HaKodesh in you and cause you to walk in my statutes. Yahuwah did this through Yeshua Mashiach. Right? Ezra knows that Yahuwah had already prophesied to him what was going to happen to the nation. Right? But he in his feelings. He's in his emotions. Yahuwah gave him a word. Yahuwah gave him a word. Right? 30 years in. Right? Because you have to understand that, chapter 1 and 2 could very well been the times right before and the time in between. Right? Right? And then you're at 30 years. 30 years. Ain't even halfway through the captivity. 35 years will be halfway through the captivity. 30 years. Ezra. He says in the 26th verse, in all things did even as Adam did. Right? And all his generations had done, for they also had a wicked heart. You got to deal with the heart. The only way to deal with the heart is through the blood. Because that heart's got to be swept clean. It has to be purged. That's a supernatural event that comes through faith in the blood of Yahushua Mashiach. That's a supernatural event that occurs in Emunah when you believe and confess. And then Yahuwah comes in and puts his Ruach HaKodesh on the inside of you. From your belly flows rivers. And these signs follow them that believe. Listen. He says, and so thou gavest the city over into the hands of their enemies. Right, because that's what he said he was going to do. Your enemy is going to come out against thee one way, and you gonna flee before him 7 ways. He says in verse 28, he says, are their deeds then any better than the inhabitants of Babylon? Ooh. Sometimes if you're getting into this psychological discussion with you. No, philosophical discussion with you. Because it's still in his feelings. His feelings is that he's seeing all these people in Babylon. He's seeing how the people of Israel is treated. And he sees that the city, the holy city, is in ruins. Right? He's sitting there on his bed, laying there, thinking. He says, are their deeds then any better than the inhabitants of Babylon? Right? That they should therefore have dominion over Zion, your people. See, now, he needed to be reminded. And Yahuwah was patient, you know, because I've been studying and I've been looking into Ezra, and Yahuwah was extremely patient with Ezra, right? Ezra is critical thinking. Yahuwah says, no, he says, is Babylon any better than your people? Right? See, Yahuwah gave a covenant to a people. Yes, sin has passed on all men, right? But his people understood the requirements. They entered into an agreement. They could be blessed if they just continued. Their sins could be covered if they just continued to keep Torah. To continue to love Yahuwah with all their heart, with all their mind, with all their soul. Not to put other L's before. He says, listen, for when I came thither and had seen impieties without numbers, then my soul saw more evildoers in this 30 years, so that my heart failed me. See the evil that these Babylonians do. Like, we know we was evil. We was evil, but they evil. He says, for I have seen how thou suffereth them sinning. You tolerate them sinning. And hast spared wicked doers. Seeing this, right? And that has destroyed thy people. Listen. Yahuwah declared that you was going to be a people robbed and spoiled in the lands of your captivity. Ezra says, I'm witnessing firsthand how diabolical they are. How they cover up their murders. How they hang you on a Sunday at a picnic. How they take your babies and feed them to gators. How they cut your hands and your arms off because you didn't produce enough rubber. How they raped and molested the children. Buck broke men in front of their children. It's evil, it's wickedness. It's evil, it's wickedness. I've seen this. Babylon for 30 years. They ain't better than us. Right? And yet you let them continue. He says, for when I come thither and have seen the impieties without numbers, and my soul saw many evildoers in this 30 years, so that my heart failed me. For I have seen how thou suffered them sinning. You let them sin like that, right? And have spared evildoers. You spared them people as they raped us. Spared those people as they cut our arms and our hands off. Right? But listen. Yahuwah said, it shall come to pass if you hearken diligently in the voice of Yahuwah thy Lord, and observe to do all that I command thee this day, then all of these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Right? Blessed shall thou be in the city, blessed shall be the field, blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, fruit of thy cattle, increase of thy kind, the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall thou be when thou goest out, blessed shall thou be when thou comest in. Right? Thy enemies that rise up against thee one way will flee before thee 7 ways. But you got to hearken diligently. You got to keep the Torah and the commandments. Yeah, but our hearts is wicked, just like Adam's was. But listen, I made provision for you through a high priest. I made it possible for you to keep the Torah before you. I made it possible for your sins to be covered. You could go to the high priest with a sacrifice and I would look upon you and I would continue to show you favor, but you didn't do that. Right? Because, the law was there to be a schoolmaster, to keep you in check, to know, so you know what you needed to do, but you didn't do it. He said, for I have seen how thou hast suffered the sinning. Thou hast spared the wicked doers. Thou hast destroyed thy people, and hast preserved thine enemies, and has not signified it. Your people. Right? But I already told you that they're not a people. I already told you that they robbed and spoiled. They're suffering this because they're robbed and spoiled, because they had done evil. They have done that evil thing. They have put other elves before me, and that has slipped into all. It was a slippery slope right down into everything else. Yeah, I know what my people are going through. Right? He says, I do not remember how this way may be left. Are they then of Babylon better than them of Zion? Because he says in Jubilees, that 2nd chapter, right, at 20 verse, he says, and he said unto us, behold, I will separate unto myself a people from among all the people, and these shall guard my Shabbat, and I will sanctify them to myself as my people, and I will bless them as I have sanctified the Shabbat, and so do sanctify it unto myself. Even so will I bless thee, I will bless them, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Eluah. And I have chosen the seed of Yaakov from among all that I have seen, and written him down as my firstborn son, and have sanctified him unto myself forever and ever, and I will teach him the Shabbat, that they may guard the Shabbat thereon from all their works. And thus he created therein signs in accordance with which he should guard the Shabbat with all of the 7 days, and eat and of drink, and of him, and bless him who has created all things, as he has blessed and sanctified unto himself a peculiar people. Right? Above all people. And that they should guard his Shabbat together with him. He says, I do not remember how this way may be left. Understand this. How you can let this be this way? Huh? How can you let these people that you have not chosen rule over your people, have dominion over your people? He says, or is there any other people that knoweth thee besides Israel? If my people. Or that what generation have so believed thy covenant as Jacob? See, the idea, the thing is that they did know. They chose to sin against it. Right? He says, and yet their reward appeareth not, and their labor haveth no fruit. For I have gone here and there throughout the heathens, and I see that the flow of wealth, and they think not upon the covenant of Yahuwah. I've been walking amongst these people. They flow in wealth and riches. They don't even think twice about you. Not even twice. But see, if you go back to that second chapter, right? Second chapter, right? She knew that her judgment was prepared. Right? Right? Yahuwah already told Ezra in the 10th chapter, tell my people, I will give them the kingdom of Jerusalem, which I would have given to Israel. That's prophetic to us. Right? That's a word to us. But there's a place here where he says, where is it? He says, Ezra received the charge of Yahuwah on Mount Erbah that I should go unto Israel. Right. Right. But when I came unto them, 2nd chapter, 33rd verse, 2nd Ezra, they set me at naught. I don't want to hear you, man. I ain't trying to hear that. I don't want to hear that. But you got cold. We don't hear that. Right? Yahuwah says you need to turn back to his commandments. We ain't turning back to those commandments, man. We ain't doing that. We're going to do just what we doing. We're going to serve the elders we serving. Get out of here with that. Therefore I say unto thee, O ye heathens, that hear, that understand, look to your shepherd. See, you ain't playing games. The heathen that received the witness of the shepherd are the only the heathens that are getting into the kingdom. Ezra had fixed his eyes on all Babylon and everything that Babylon had been doing. Right? Yahuwah knows what Babylon's doing. But Babylon ain't going to be saved. Just like Israel ain't going to be saved. Unless they receive the shepherd. Yahushua's the good shepherd of the sheep. Unless you get your heart replaced. Yahuwah's made provisions to replace your heart. That's why he said you're going to have people who receive me and even not these Gentiles. These other nations is going to receive this witness. The heathens are going to look for the shepherd. And those in Yasharal and Yehuda that are robbed and spoiled, those dry bones that are in the valley, they gonna wake up. They gonna come together. They gonna get sinew, and then they gonna get flesh. That's what's happening right now. But you still gotta have the quickening. You gotta still have the quickening. You gotta have the quickening. You have the ruach hakodesh, the water and the blood. You gotta have the quickening. 30 years, Ezra. Receive the word from Yahuwah told the people. People didn't want to receive it. 30 years. Ezra walking around seeing everything. The wickedness, the mistreatment. He's seeing what the Babylonians do to the nation. See what the Babylonians do to his people. We in the Americas, we've seen what Babylon has done to our people. In this nation, we've witnessed it. Chapter 2, chapter 3. He says, or is there any other people that knoweth thee beside Yisrael? Or a generation that hath believed thy covenant as Yaakov? Yaakov despised the covenant. He just read it. See, he's in his feelings. He's in his feelings. Right? Now, if I understand it, Ezra was righteous in his heart for his people. Right? But he was in his feelings. See, because the people has to turn to you. The judgment and the justice has to be served. Listen, I give Yahuwah praise and I thank him that I have benefited from the time that our ancestors have suffered. And in this fullness of time, I am now a recipient, right, of this covenant with faith in Yahushua HaMashiach's witness. This purchased my Yeshua. I can keep the commandments now. I don't sin. You know, again, I'm gonna tell you like this. I don't sin, right? Because Yahuwah's ruach is in me, right? Right? I don't willfully go about sinning. And you know, if something does happen, right? You know, I repent immediately, and I receive the atoning blood for that. But you know, that ain't like that ain't nothing that happens daily. That ain't nothing I'm sitting around here like, oh, you perfect, give me some. Listen, man, the righteousness that comes through faith and the witness and the blood of Yeshua Mashiach is all you need. Let's go. He says, we're almost done. He says, and yet their reward appeareth not, and their labor hath no fruit. For I have gone here and gone there through amongst the heathen, and I have seen that the flow of wealth, and think not upon thy commandments. They don't think about thy commandments. Weigh thou therefore, O our wickedness now in the balance, and theirs also that dwell in the world. And so shall thy name nowhere be found but in Yisrael. He said, wait, compare to wickedness. At least some of the time we were serving you. There was a period in which we were dedicated to you, a season, right? Weigh it. right? You're going to find the only place that the name of Yahshua is going to be is amongst Israel. Right? Or when was it that they which dwelt upon the earth have not sinned in your sight? Who in this world have not sinned in your sight? Right? Right? Or what people haven't so kept thy commandments? He says, thou shalt find that Israel by name, Yahshua, by name, given the name, Yahshua, by name, have kept thy commandments, but not the heathen. Esdras, the 3rd chapter, is reflecting on and building an argument for the nation of Israel, as if they have a solid ground to stand on. He himself went to him and they didn't want to hear him. But he loved his people. It's like Moshe. Yahuwah was like, look, man, these people are down there cutting a fool. They worshiping a calf, right? And, I'm about ready to destroy them all and raise up a nation. And Yahuwah's done that. He's done that before. He'll do it again, right? And Moshe said, listen, you can't do it because everybody's going to say you weren't able to keep your people. That you brought them out here just to kill them. He was to go down there and deal with it. And he did. I need you to separate unto me those who are on Yahuwah's side and those who are not. Then the priests took swords and killed everybody who wasn't. Yahuwah requires righteousness, requires obedience. And yes, sin consciousness is passed on to all men. But sin don't have dominion over us. We who have received the witness of Yeshua Mashiach, sin don't reign in our mortal bodies. Yeah, we're not slaves to sin anymore. We bear in our body the righteousness that comes through faith in Hamashiach, the witness. We have an atonement that is on our behalf. And then we've been given Yahuwah's Ruach HaKodesh as we've asked for it. I love Ezra. And I can see his earnest concern for his people. Right? But Yahuwah is going to reveal to him. He knows all and understands all, and everything he's doing is still a part of his plan. Because we already know. And the Yahuwah says there's a name that's coming. There's a witness. And the Shamaim and the Eretz, they're coming. Right? He says at one point, I, Ezra, saw upon Mount Sion a great people, of whom I could not number, and they all praise with one song. Right? Right? He says here, he says, Ezra received the charge, and that's what he did, and despised his commandments. And then he says into the 34, and therefore I say unto you, O ye heathens, take heed, understand, look for your shepherd, he shall give you everlasting rest, and in his and he is nigh at hand. He that comes shall come. He, keep adding words. And he is nigh at hand that shall come in the end of the world. He said, be ye ready for your reward. Be ye ready for the reward of the kingdom. Right? For an everlasting light shall shine upon you forevermore. Flee from the shadows of this world. Receive the joy of your glory. I testify my Savior openly. Come on, listen. I received the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh that is given. Receive the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh is given to you. And be glad, giving thanks unto him that hath called you into his heavenly kingdom. Listen. There's a promise, a reward of a kingdom that Yahuwah has established for his people. We the people. We the people who have received the witness in the Shamaim and the Eretz. Man of Yah, woman of Yah, that's all we have. That's Esdras, the 3rd chapter. Esdras says, he says, in the 30th year after the ruin of the city, I was in Babylon laying on my bed, and my thoughts came up over my heart, right? For I saw the desolation of Zion and the wealth of them that dwelt in Babylon, and my spirit was sore moved. He says, so that I began to speak words full of fear to the Most High. I began to question the Most High. I began to question the Most High. I began to question the decisions of the Most High. I began to question whether or not, were these people better than us? Who's ever served you like Israel? Man of Yah, woman of Yah, better understand. Yahuwah is about righteousness and judgment. Righteousness to those who serve him, and judgment to those who don't. Righteousness and deliverance and protection to those who serve him, and judgment to those who don't. Man of Yah, woman of Yah. Yahuwah, I pray right now in the name of Yahushua Mashiach that the words you've given to me to give to them, I pray in the name of Yahushua Mashiach that they would keep them, that they would be spirit and life to them, that it would quicken them, make them alive, Yahuwah. Birth forth in them by the Ruach of wisdom and revelation and the knowledge of you. Yahuwah, let the eyes of their understanding be enlightened, that they may know what is the hope of your calling and what the riches of the glory of your inheritance are in them in the Ruach HaKodesh. Yahuwah, I pray that no one is turned that away, no one stumbles, no one comes up lame. Yahuwah, I pray that you would take this word that I have committed unto you and use me, Yahuwah. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart continually be acceptable in thy sight. Yahuwah, my strength and my redeemer. Man of Yah, woman of Yah, called to greatness. Woman of Yahuwah, beautifully and wonderfully made today, Yahuwah's favorite. Listen, Shabbat tomorrow. You know me, I love the Shabbat. I love the Shabbat. I do. He's giving the Shabbat to us. Yaakov, I'm Yehuda. He's giving Yehuda the Shabbat. We'll serve you with gladness on the Shabbat. We'll worship and magnify his name on the Shabbat because he's giving it to us, the rest. So I'm about to go out here and labor for a few hours. But I'm going to rest. So man of Yah called to greatness, woman of Yahuwah called to greatness. Woman beautifully and wonderfully made today, Yahuwah's favorite you. Listen, be blessed. They be led by the Ruach HaKodesh. For as many as are led by the Ruach HaKodesh, these are the sons of Yahuwah. These are the daughters of Yahuwah. Listen, allow Yahuwah by the Ruach HaKodesh to lead you and guide you. Listen, and don't get so caught up in self-talk. I sit down and have you having all cold conversations about stuff that don't even matter, that you wonder where it comes from. Cast that stuff down. That's vain imagination. Cast that stuff. That's conversations, hostile, used to lure you into something and get you to think in a certain way and move in a certain way. Let's don't do it. Let's get rid of it. Listen, man, woman of Yah. With that I say shalom, shalom, shalom. And pre-Shabbat. Be blessed.
Torah guardian, speaking the absolute truth. Torah nation.